With the summer transfer window just wrapped up, Manchester United have made some smart moves in the market, bringing in quality signings while also trimming the squad to create a more balanced team. Under Ruben Amorim, there's a new sense of direction at Old Trafford, but with no European football this season, the focus is entirely on domestic success. The main goal will be to win consistently in the league, climb back into the top spots, and secure a return to Europe next year. The United board will be keeping a close eye on certain key areas of the squad, with potential reinforcements likely to arrive either in January or in the next summer window as part of the long-term rebuild. For people looking to take on this challenge, building a realistic Manchester United career mode in FC26 means balancing immediate results with laying the foundation for future success. This is how you can kick off a realistic Manchester United career mode in FC26. To truly recreate the realism on the pitch for your United career mode, Amorim's tactical setup is essential. He's known for his aggressive 3-4-2-1 system, which thrives on vertical passing to progress the ball quickly and dismantle opposition defenses. The idea is to move the ball with purpose rather than sideways circulation, getting the team forward at pace and creating constant pressure in the final third. Amorim's approach is assertive and front-footed, demanding his players control games, press with structure, and attack with intent. In the system, the wingbacks provide width and energy, the double pivot in midfield builds the platform for transitions, and the two attacking midfielders drift into half spaces to combine and stretch opponents. These tactics not only give United a strong identity, but also make the gameplay feel more authentic to Amorim's real-life style, where discipline off the ball matches creativity on it. Be sure to check out the new tactics video I recreated for FC26, which will guide you setting up the team just like Amorim would. And for my Patreon subscribers, I will be dropping the alternate tactical setup tomorrow, and don't forget to also implement the 4-4-2 defensive variation that Amorim has used. These various systems will provide more depth and flexibility when managing Manchester United. The squad is much smaller than in recent years, giving it a more focused look under Amorim. I'll go through the team and highlight who could stay as part of the project and who could be moved on to make room for new signings. So for the goalkeeping department, there are currently 6 players on the books, the first being Tom Heaton, then there's Andre Onana, not to mention Bayendier, Lamens, Vitek, and Eli Harrison. Now as for the 2 younger goalkeepers, I would look to keep them as long as possible, with possibly even Vitek being the 3rd or maybe even the 2nd choice goalkeeper from next season onwards, with the likes of Lamens taking up that number 1 position as he was recently brought in, and you might look to move on both Bayendier as well as Onana. I think Onana is definitely set to depart the club at the end of the season regardless of what happens in Turkey, and I think that's a good move for both the player as well as Manchester United. As for Tom Heaton, in this career mode he does look like he is going to be retiring, which is why I say the likes of potential Vitek or even Eli Harrison could be that 3rd or maybe even that 2nd choice goalkeeper, depending on where the funds are going to be allocated for your future signings. As for the left back position, there's currently Diego Leon, Tyrell Malacia, Harry Amas, and then of course Patrick Dorgu, who is the number 1 choice for that role and that position under the likes of Ruben Amorim. Now as for Harry Amas, he is out on loan at Sheffield Wednesday and he will continue to develop and grow there, and you may want to potentially loan him out again when he does come back, or if he has grown sufficiently and you're not looking to really allocate funds to that position, he could be the natural understudy for Patrick Dorgu as that left wing back. As for Tyrell Malacia, he was part of the bomb squad in this past summer window and United were looking to try and shift him out, whether it was on loan or maybe even a permanent deal, and try and get some money in for him, but it does look likely that he will be departing the club on a free come the end of the season. And last but not least is Diego Leon, who does have a very similar situation to Harry Amas. Now I think for the first season in Manchester he will look to try and settle down to what life is like in England, but I'm pretty sure that from next year onwards he could be loaned out to various teams to try and get more game time under his belt. Now with Ruben Amorim's system of play, the centre back area is a key department of his side, and there are currently 8 players in this position that can be deployed in the back 3, the first being Aiden Heaven, followed on by Harry Maguire, then there's of course Luke Shaw, who can also play as a potential left wing back if needed. He is then followed on by Matthias Select, Lissandro Martinez, Lenny Yora, and then Tyler Fredrickson, and then there's of course a Joffrey who is out on loan. Now just looking at all the centre backs in the squad, and this is probably one key area that doesn't really need to have too much going on, at least for the first season that you're playing the career mode. Now depending on the development of the young Tyler Fredrickson as well as Aiden Heaven, you could look to try and dip into the markets and bring in a bit more experience or maybe even a bit more quality, and then maybe look to loan out one of Fredrickson or possibly even Aiden Heaven for the upcoming season, especially if you are back in European competitions. You need a bit more quality to your squad and you can't really rely on young players to consistently grow all the time and get the sufficient game time that they do need, or maybe even just to try and create that more competitive element in the side. Now also it needs to be said that Harry Maguire is in the last 12 months of his deal. Of course he was extended last summer, and I do think that Manchester United as well as Ruben Amorim, they want to try and keep him around for a little bit longer. That could be a further year or maybe even a further 2 years. As for Luke Shaw, he has had his fair share of injury issues over the last last couple of seasons, but it does look like that left centre-back role does suit him a fair amount, but he could also be alternated between Patrick Dorgu as well as Lisandro Martinez for those starting roles, either as a left wing-back or that left midfielder, or maybe even that left-sided centre-back. I think Amorim does like him, and realistically wise, I wouldn't look to sell him, although I do understand that he is a bit of a hindrance at times, and he probably does need to move on if we are being really honest with ourselves. Onto the right backs, and there's Dalot, Mazraoui, and Agunai. Now, it does need to be mentioned, but because you will be playing a 3-4-2-1, both the left back as well as the right back positions need to be converted into left and right midfielders, as it will just help them fit into the side a lot better. And of course, all of these players do have at least a left or a right midfield position in their second or third positions for the individual players. Now, Mazraoui is very similar to Luke Shaw, and I do think that Ruben Amorim views both of these players more or less in the same boat. They can both function in the back three as the left or the right sided centre back, but they can also function on the wings as the fullbacks or potentially the wing backs. So Mazraoui could be converted either into a centre back or a right midfielder. Moving on into central midfield, and there's Casemiro, Ugarte, and then of course Toby Collier, who was loaned out to West Brom. Now, he is a player that I do think has a long-term future under Amorim. He does possess the required skill set as well as temperaments and traits and all that good stuff to be able to function and flourish in a two-man midfield that Amorim does deploy. Now, as for the likes of Ugarte and Casemiro, I do think that Casemiro at the end of the season will be departing Manchester United, so you can either look to sell him in the first summer window, or you can look to keep him for the remainder of the season and then just let him walk on a free. As for Ugarte, he does have a very intriguing role in the squad, and that's not as a starter, but more so as a squad filler, or maybe even just a squad player. A player who can be called upon in certain games to provide his aggressive nature in the central midfield department. Now, I should also just mention that all three of these players should be converted into central midfielders, again to try and fit into that 3-4-2-1 structure. So for the likes of Marcus Rashford and Jadon Sancho, both are out on loan currently, and for the likes of Jadon Sancho, there's no buy option in the Aston Villa loan. I think it's just a straight loan, whereas the likes of Marcus Rashford, he does have that 25 to 30 million pound buy option for Barcelona to potentially trigger. And of course, as of late, there have been some good rumors surrounding Rashford joining Barca on a permanent deal, so that does look likely to happen. Whereas the likes of Jadon Sancho, this is the final year of his deal with Manchester United. Unless they trigger the extra 1-year extension, it does look likely that he will be leaving the club at the end of the season. And if they do trigger that extra year extension, I think that it would mean that they would look to try and sell him and try and get some money in for the English winger. Now, part of the midfield pivot that has Casemiro, Ugarte, and in the future eventually Toby Collier is also the likes of Kobbie Mainoo. Now, this is a player that has all the required skills needed to really flourish in that central double pivot. He can play as the defensive player or maybe even as the more attacking player, and we will speak about Bruno Fernandes soon enough, but Kobbie Mainoo did want to leave. I don't see him leaving. I don't see Amorim kicking him out. I don't see United looking to sell him unless the player comes in and says, I want to go. But this is a player that I think the future of that Manchester United midfield definitely surrounds itself around. That doesn't make a lot of sense, but he is going to be the heartbeat of Manchester United for many, many years to come, unless he leaves, which I don't think is going to happen. Now, I mentioned the attacking midfielder role in that double pivot, and Bruno Fernandes has been largely deployed this season in that more attacking central midfield area. Now, a lot of people say he is a number 10, he should play in the number 10 positions. A lot of people say no, he should stay in the midfield. I'm quite happy to have him as that floater, the player who can play in the 10 or in that number 8 position. And I would also look to try and change his position into number 8, a central midfielder, and then you convert him to the according instructions for the tactics. Of course, Amorim definitely wants Bruno Fernandes in his side. He refused to let him leave and go to Saudi last summer window, and I don't see him leaving anytime soon, although there are the fan theories that Bruno Fernandes could be leaving at the end of the season and going to Saudi eventually to secure the bag, and I wouldn't blame him if he did, but I also think that Amorim does want and require him to have a successful team to try and build the team around, and maybe we will see eventually the double pivot of Bruno Fernandes as that attacking midfielder, and then of course Kobbie Mainoo's positioned right next to him, and hopefully they can try and strike up a partnership, although there are flaws to it. But I think with every single current double pivots player and pairing that you can think of, there's deficiencies in all areas. So, you win some and you lose some. Then comes the number 10 area. Of course, Amorim's 3-4-2-1 has two number 10s that also kind of function as wingers just in behind the striker. Now, Mason Mount has been a key figure up until he got injured and missed the one game, but he was a key figure in that left number 10 role alongside Matheus Cunha, who is a new signing. Then there's of course Ahmad, who has recently been playing there, although he has also played deployed as a right wing back or right midfielder, and then Mbeumo, who is also another summer signing. And to be honest with you, Mbeumo and Cunha have been very, very good alongside Mason Mount. And although Ahmad has struggled, I do see him having a more proficient role as either a number 10 or as a makeshift right wing back that can patrol up and down the right side of the pitch. Onto the strikers for Manchester United, and there's Wheatley, Kanabiyek, Obi, Xerxes, Rasmus Højlund, Sesko, and then Hugel. Now, as for Hugel, I would probably look to try and sell him when he comes back from his loan. I don't see a future for him, just like how I don't see a future really for Ethan Wheatley. When he first burst onto the scene, I was like, cool, this kid could be great, but he's just had too many loans and he hasn't really kicked on, so maybe looking to cash in on him, that could be an option. Now, as for Kanabiyek, I don't really know too much about him, but I do know that he was recruited quite recently and he has been loaned out to one of the Ineos teams that they do own, and he might look to develop. Now, this is something that I would encourage you try and do the same for Chido Obi, because of course he is only 17, he's got a massive potential, and he could be one of the future strikers that hopefully lead United in your career mode to success. So maybe looking to loan him out in the January or next summer window could be a great option, or future proofing, or future planning for your side, because for the meantime you have Joshua Xerxes, and then of course you have Benjamin Sesko in the side that can play up front as the striker, not to mention Brian Mbeumo as well as Cunha, who can also be deployed in that position. Now, as for Rasmus Højlund, it does look likely that he will be leaving on a permanent next summer, because Napoli have got the option, or it becomes an obligation if Napoli do make Champions League football next season, and it becomes an obligation of around, I think it's £40 million. So that's a good bit of business in my opinion for Rasmus Højlund. It didn't really work out for him, but I wish him nothing but the best, and I do think that he will crack on in Italy and be involved in a team that more or less suits how he looks to play football. Now, scouting will be absolutely crucial for your Manchester United career mode, as it will play a major role in bringing in elite talent into the first team. To mirror the club's real-world approach, setting up your scouts in the biggest footballing nations will be key. Countries like England, France, Germany, Spain, Portugal, and Italy should be your primary focus, as they consistently produce high-level players who are ready to compete at the top level. When it comes to the scouting instructions, the United recruitment team will be looking for very specific profiles. The first priority is identifying first-team quality centre-backs to add depth and competition in a key area of the pitch. A left-back to challenge Dorgu is another important target, ensuring there's balance and cover on the flanks. But the central midfield will be a key area that draws the most attention, with the board placing heavy emphasis on strengthening there over the coming months. Bringing in a player who can develop into a world-class midfielder, or is already operating at that level, will be one of the main objectives. The focus should be scouting players between the ages of 16 and 25, as this gives you a mix of ready-made talent and long-term potential. The same applies for the other central midfield role, where Amorim's system thrives on creativity, vertical passing, and intelligent movements. With potential exits expected in the summer, those positions need to be planned for now to ensure United aren't caught out. Finally, another smart approach for career mode is targeting players near the end of their contracts. Free transfers can be an excellent way to fill out the squad without putting additional strain on the budget, especially with United's financial situation still requiring careful management. Combining high-level scouting with smart recruitment decisions will give you the foundations to build a squad capable of challenging at the very top. Another key part of building a realistic Manchester United career mode is the youth scouting system. Amorim is a manager who values development and progression, so setting up a strong academy structure is vital to laying the foundations for the future. Investing in youth not only gives you long-term options, but also creates opportunities to bring through homegrown players who can grow into first-team stars over time. The most obvious place to start is in England, where the club has always had a proud tradition of producing homegrown talents. Establishing scouts here will be crucial to maintaining that connection and ensuring a steady flow of local players who understand the club's culture. But United scouting in recent years has also looked further afield, specifically in Africa, where they've uncovered some supreme talents who combine raw athleticism with technical quality. And these players could become the cornerstones for Amorim's future squads. As for the third scout, that decision is left in your hands. Personally, I would recommend targeting South America, where nations like Brazil, Argentina, and Uruguay have constantly produced world-class prospects. The region is a goldmine for creative midfielders, explosive wingers, and technically gifted strikers who could add flair and unpredictability to your team. By combining a strong domestic scouting presence with these international networks, you can realistically mirror how United are building for the future, both at home and abroad. And lastly, to round out the video, we'll take a look at a few transfer targets that you could go after to add both depth and quality to your United career mode. These are players who have either already been linked to the club or ones who slot in perfectly into Amorim's system of play, giving you realistic options to strengthen your squad and push the team to the next level. Now, I do have 4 centre-backs on this list, but 2 of them are for one position and the other 2 are for another. Now, Calvin Bassey and Lukumi are 2 left-footed centre-backs that could come in and successfully back up the likes of Lisandro Martinez. And in this situation, you could potentially look to loan out the likes of in heaven and letting Brom develop at another team, maybe for a year or two, before coming back and then instilling him as the mainstay left-sided centre-back, or maybe even as the bench option. But I don't think you can go wrong with recruiting one of Lukumi or Bassi as that left-sided centre-back. Now, the middle centre-back is an area that I think is quite strong. There's the likes of Harry Maguire as well as Matthijs de Ligt. However, does de Ligt really fit into that middle centre-back role? Now, in that position, you need to be good on the ball, and you also need to have a good passing range, which Matthijs de Ligt does sometimes have, but he's not consistent with it. Whereas the likes of Harry Maguire, he can ping balls out wide, he can stretch the pitch quite effectively, but he also doesn't have the recovery pace needed, whereas the likes of de Ligt does. But if we look at both Marc Guehi as well as Diomande, they do fit that role perfectly. Now, Diomande played under Amorim at Sporting 2 years ago, whereas Marc Guehi has largely played as a left-sided centre-back for Crystal Palace. However, he does have the speed, the athleticism, as well as the physicality and also the passing range to flourish as that middle centre-back role. And then you can have the likes of Matthijs de Ligt as well as Lenny Yoro competing for that right-sided centre-back area, and that immediately will then make the centre-back departments very, very strong. In fact, probably world-class to some extent if you include the likes of a Luke Shaw and maybe even a Mazraoui as extra options to that core six, you could say. But it would give Amorim a lot of good options to then have a good competition going with the centre-back area. Onto the midfield, and this is a position where I felt United should have targeted this past summer window, but they decided to look at the attack more so than the midfield and go into the season with a midfield four of Kobbie Mainoo, Bruno Fernandes, Casemiro and Ugarte. However, they were also looking at Carlos Baleba, but that deal did not go through. There were reports saying that maybe even in January or definitely next summer, they will be going back in for him. However, there's also a few other players that I have added to this list in case the Baleba deal doesn't go through, or in case you are looking for an extra player, maybe you get rid of Casemiro or Ugarte and you are looking for another player as well, and that is Agome. Now, he is a fantastic option to be a bench player slash rotational player with the likes of a Carlos Baleba, and I do think that you can't go wrong with getting either of these guys. However, if that's not really your style, and I do think that you do need a bit more of an athletic central midfielder, then you can go for Adam Wharton, who's got the passing range, who's got the IQ to really flourish in a midfield double pivot. And we have seen for Crystal Palace, he has been deployed in a very similar system, a 3-4-2-1 under Oliver Glasner, and he has done quite well. He's won both the FA Cup as well as the Community Shield against Liverpool and against Man City respectively. So all three of these players I think would be great additions, and probably encourage you to go and get at least two out of these three. Go and get Baleba and Agome, or go get Wharton and Agome, or maybe go and get Baleba and Wharton, although that does seem like not as realistic as what you might want. I know we want to have, you know, superstars. We want Wharton and Baleba and Mainoo and Bruno, but sometimes it just doesn't work out like that. And then moving on to the final position for Ruben Amorim's targets. Now, these are players that can play either on the left or the right of that 3-4-2-1 as wing backs, or in some of these players' cases, they can even be deployed up front or in those number 10 areas. Now, Semenyo is a special sort of player because I think he could play up front as a striker. I think he could play in either of the number 10 positions, or he could flourish as a wing back on the left or the right. We've seen for the likes of Bournemouth how well he's done in various positions that can be on the left or the right, or even up front as the striker, and he has done very, very well. And of course, he was heavily linked with a move to United in the summer, and the deal was agreed and everything was agreed, but then of course we went for Mbeumo instead. But I do think that maybe, just maybe, Manchester United could go back in for Semenyo in the upcoming few months if they are looking to really solidify themselves as an attacking force in the Premier League. So there is that option. I've put down Salamakers because I do think that he is a very good option for a wing-back role, either the left or the right. And we saw for Roma last year, he was largely deployed as a wing-back up and down that right touchline. I think he was also sometimes deployed on the left, but it was mainly as that right wing-back, whipping in crosses, supplying balls from those wide areas, and also being an outlet. He's quite a pacey player. And the last player is Katoma from Sporting CP, also formerly a player of Ruben Amorim. He does know how the system works. He does know how Amorim wants the wide players playing, but he is also another player that can potentially function in one of the number 10 roles. He is a left-footed player, so you could perfectly station him out wide on the left to either whip in crosses naturally with his left foot and compete with Patrick Dorgu, or in that Ahmad role when he is deployed as a right wing back, and you could have him cutting inside and interchanging with Mbeumo in that number 10 position. So there we go, people. That is how you can start a realistic Manchester United career mode in FC26. I do hope you have enjoyed this video, and if you don't mind, smash that like button down below, whilst also subscribing to the channel if you are new and you like the content. We are on the road to 30,000 subscribers by the end of this year, so again, if you're not subscribed, please do. It would be fan-damn-tastic if we could hit that goal. in the next few months. That would be amazing. Now, if you're looking for any extra content, like I mentioned in the beginning of this video, the Patreon, the link for that will be down below in the description. I release extra tactics on there, exclusive tactics only for Patreon subscribers and payers and all that stuff. So again, if you are interested in that, the link for it will be down below in the description, as well as the link for the Brom Squad Gaming Discord. Now on there, we chat everything football. We have a great laugh, we banter, we do the whole work, the whole shebang. We also chat about FC, we also chat about, you know, potential upcoming football games like, you know, FIFA 2K, whenever that does come out, who knows. And of course also some football manager stuff, which is quite cool. It's quite nice. It's good to always mix it up and really chat to the bigger audience. I really do enjoy chatting on this. So again, if you do have some free time and you do want to see what it's all about, the link for it will be down below in the description. Go ahead, click on it, and I will welcome you with open arms to the Discord or to the Patreon or even just to the channel. So anyways, I'm done waffling. I do hope you guys have a smashing goddamn day, and I'm out of here. Peace.